myself, I'm Carrie Woofter. I'm the teacher and the program director for Front Street Writers. This is our second year. It's been an amazing journey. This is a big group of kids, very talented and a lot of fun to work with. I do want to introduce to you another important person. This is Francine Harris, and she's going to be sharing with you a little bit of explanation about the sections that we've been working on. Francine is our writer in residence, and that is one of the unique features of this program. Instead of just having a plain old teacher, we have an actual writer. Francine is a published poet. She has an MFA from U of M. She actually read, some of you may have heard her open for Nikki Giovanni about a month and a half ago. And we're really, really excited and blessed to have her here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is a great group of folks, so I'm really happy to see you all this evening. We are, like Mrs. Woofter said, I'm Francine Harris, I'm a poet person. We broke up this evening in sections to kind of give you a flavor of this is a multi-genre writing program, which means we're dealing with fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and we're actually starting our evening with our nonfiction section. We've been sort of moving in phases, so we started with fiction and then we moved into nonfiction. The nonfiction that you'll hear this evening is the first segment. We're about halfway through our program, so we're going to come back to that. But the nonfiction that the students were writing on were largely personal portraits and something called a lyric essay, which is a little weird to explain. The best way that I can explain it is it's a piece of writing that is kind of an essay and kind of a poem. It makes its point through language. So when we get to the poetry section, you'll hear some of the more, I guess, hard, fast poems, but the lyric essay sort of sounds like a poem, but the idea is that it brings a point, that it's making something of an argument. And then the other pieces that they were writing are personal narrative portraits of people that they know. So each writer is going to come up and introduce themselves. They'll introduce the title of their piece and probably tell you if it's a personal narrative or if it's a lyric essay. So please give a round of applause for our first reader.
Hi, I'm Sarah Korb, and I will be reading an excerpt from my essay, The Gentleman. So you've never been kissed before? Really? He looked at me in shock, and he let out a sigh. It concerned me. It sounded like the kind someone would let out when they were flustered and didn't know if they wanted to talk about this anymore. Yeah, I know. I guess I really haven't attracted people as much as I thought. I tried to sound funny, but I always made things sound dweebish. It really didn't matter, though. He only heard the words. He didn't seem concerned with how I said it. It's not that you're not pretty enough. We both know you are. Geez. He looked into the sand, moving his feet around. Neither one of us said anything for a while. I knew if I did, I would be apologizing, so I resisted. He finally broke the silence. I've never been anyone's first kiss before. Like, I've never had to teach them how to kiss, if that makes sense. He was nervous too. It lightened the load for me. We had just spent an entire evening together. From what I had seen of him, he seemed like a pretty down-to-earth guy who wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Here he was, left speechless, actionless, nervous, and shy. I mean, I guess I can teach you. It's not that hard. He was still looking in the sand. I didn't respond right away, and he looked up at me. Sarah, do you want me to? I was on a rock by the beach. I had just spent my evening with a guy who swept me off my feet. We didn't share a single dull moment, and we laughed at the stupid things we both did. I nodded my head. He said okay and scooted closer to me. He leaned in and closed his eyes. I followed his lead. It felt like forever, or maybe I was just moving too slow, but our lips finally met. Austin had been my first kiss, and it was one I wouldn't forget. It was all I thought about for the next few days. Not too long after we had been on the beach, our night had reached an end. I had to head home with my parents. Hey, before we leave, I should get your number so I can call you. The words sounded so natural coming out of his mouth. He didn't even stutter. I wrote down my number and gave the paper to him. Thank you.
I'm Tasha Vincent, and this is an excerpt from a personal narrative I wrote called Afternoon Coffee. All you need to know is my brother and I are out for coffee, and his girlfriend of a year and a half just broke up with him the night prior. Wait, I exclaimed. You didn't sleep last night, did you? And that's why you're awake when I came into your room last night to ask for a ride today. He sighs. You'd be correct. I was up trying to figure out what the hell happened. Aren't relationships supposed to work through their problems and get stronger because of it? You'd think so, I say, but it's gotta be a mutual thing. We're quiet a while, sipping our hot drinks, stunned by it all. I pop the top off my drink, fiddling out of awkwardness. So, what now? She said we could try again after college, but I'm not too convinced on that. People change, and if we don't change together, we're just going to grow apart. You need to go to college, I say, more of an order than a suggestion. My brother says, remember how Papa told us about life being a trilogy? The first book is about when a person is in school, their childhood. The second is early adulthood, college, first house, marriage. The third would be having children and growing old. Yeah, I remember. Well, I just finished my first book. There's nothing left for me here now. I could just leave one day and not come back, and that would be okay, because I'm an adult. But would that be okay with you, I ask? You know me. I'm not smart enough to figure out where to go from there. Well, I'd miss you. You'd get your own room. I'd still miss you. He grins at this statement, and then pulls out his phone to check the time. We better be getting home. You've got to work this weekend, and you still have to pack. Right. And thanks for the coffee, I say, rising from my chair. We need to do this more often. Spend time together, he suggests. But next time, you're buying. Hey, unlike you, I love my job. We throw our empty cups in the trash and stroll down Front Street to his rusty red beater. I still can't believe they're over. A year and a half of her teasing me how hot my brother was, and how he's a good kisser, and I secretly thinking she'd never be good enough for my older brother. All of it is over. She broke his heart, and I'm not okay with that. And a part of me hated her, but a part of me was okay with letting her be my sister-in-law. Maybe the only good thing about them ending is a start to the mending of a broken relationship, torn by sibling pride. His walls came crashing down, and his heart is shattered, but together, maybe we can fix it, just us two. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hannah Homan, and this is my lyric essay called I Can Feel It. My head pounds with the hangover of the vodka I've never tasted. My mouth feels the blood-soaked stones that rumble low in my throat with the accent I've only ever imitated. My veins pump with the ice shards that freeze and puncture my fleshy insides. When I close my eyes, I can see the land, I can hear the people, I can feel the cold. The frost is burrowed inside of me, stripping me to the bone. There are girls who want to meet a British boy who is a perfect gentleman. Girls who want to meet a French boy because he's romantic. Girls who want to meet an Italian boy because he is passionate. I want to be Russian because I don't need a boy. To be born with the hardness that comes from the cold, to wield the strength that is not given to you, but taken by you. To know who the enemy is, and that is anyone who opposes you. To work for yourself, and yourself alone. There are people who would disagree, say it is just a nationality. But this is true of being an American. Being an American comes with the values of freedom, democracy, equality. It comes with the love of apple pie, baseball, and the red, white, and blue. We stand beneath the flag and vow our loyalty forever and always, because we are passionate, erratic, patriotic to a fault. We stand for our country, our blood, our family by origin. Why do you want to be Russian? Because I feel Russian. If I had the nationality in my grasp, in my physical blood, would I feel it anymore? Would the qualities shine through, or would there be no difference? Am I Russian because I feel it, though I do not look the part? Is there something more to having the heritage than simply wanting it, knowing it? What if these are just what I say they are, ideals? What if these are a dream long forgotten by the people actually of the nationality? What if I'm another girl who wants to go to England, France, Italy? What if I'm another girl looking for a boy with an accent and a characteristic I think he gets from his country? But I feel it. I feel my head pounding with the hangover of the vodka I've never tasted. My mouth feels the rumbling low in my throat with the accent I've only ever imitated. My veins are pumping with the ice shards that freeze and puncture my fleshy insides. I feel the frost growing inside of me, stripping me to the bone. I feel Russian. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olivia Fleet, and I will be reading a lyric essay entitled Vigor. Those were the days, everyone said, the days drenched in glory and dripping in glamour. Those were the days of American flags and smoke-filled rooms. She was elusive and magnetic, clad in floor-length gowns with secrets in her smile. Hair salons were packed with women pleading, "Make my hair just like hers." Everyone looked to him with the brightest of eyes and the highest of honor. He was our leader, the epitome of youth, the shining beacon of something greater than anyone had imagined. But when the doors closed and the cameras ceased to roll, he was broken, so broken. The sides of the bed were divided, one for his back and one for her sadness. She was trying to think of better times. She was often away with the horses. But when he couldn't take his socks off, couldn't bend his back, she was there to help him, always there to help him. She was in this until the end, wasn't she? Swallowing medicine and swallowing fear, he faced the man with the missiles and saved us all. We let out a big, simultaneous sigh of relief, all of us. It wasn't going to end tomorrow. We weren't all going to become a giant mushroom floating up towards the sky. America the beautiful, spared to see another day. Women, so many women, in and out of that big house, that big white house with the fountain out front. He loved her, but it got buried somewhere on his desk. He'd given her everything, he told someone once, everything but the one thing she really wanted. They walked hand in hand during those last few days, bound together by their harrowing loss. He lasted only 2 days, the little baby who couldn't breathe. He needed her now that he knew things wouldn't last forever. November 22nd, 1963, gearing up for 64. Let's turn Texas blue. Mr. President, Mr. President. They were greeted by crowds, loved, so loved by the people who gave them flowers and showered them with compliments. Jack and Jackie, the infinite couple, the eternal flame. She was wearing Chanel and beaming at the man she loved. They got into the motorcade, everyone waving and smiling their brightest. You can't say Dallas doesn't love you. Shots rang out in Dallas, and Dallas rang out in fear. She climbed onto the back of the motorcade, searching for the piece of him that had flown too far away. 1, 2, 3. He slumps. He's gone. They wore red shoes at the service, matching red shoes. Little John saluted the grave, and sweet Caroline stood by her mother in the black veil. The nation wept with her. They wept for Camelot, they wept for hope. They wept for days, for years, for 50 years now. She used to play records for him every evening, she said. If you listen closely, there are still show tunes pouring out the windows of that big White House. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Halstead, and I will be reading an excerpt of my portrait of my neighbor, entitled Long Distance Neighbors. By the time we reached the high school versions of us, she was constantly denying me with her common sense, contrasting my thirst for adventure. She was always telling me to grow up. I, after all, was the one who so feared high school, while she craved the maturity of its hallowed halls. So she grew up without me. I began to feel like an unwanted burden, the obnoxious buzz in the background of a malfunctioning DVD player, a continuous annoyance with my suggestions. We still say that we're best friends, but we share nothing other than the oxygen that circulates through the awkward silence in her car every bitter school morning after a requested sip of coffee is denied with a flustered, "God, Jill, no." And the beaten path between her backyard and my front has gone untraveled. Then she went to Italy. Italy was the cementation of the long-distanceness that had been budding between us. We Skyped and texted and emailed and did whatever we could to stay in contact, but the inevitable prevailed. Traverse City became boring to her. And not only just Traverse City, but my life shriveled into blandness compared to her new, exhilarating life. And I was happy for her. She was living the dream of someone like herself who wants to be anywhere other than where she's been for too long. But this exhilaration that I had never encountered before translated into my lack of life experience, and therefore my opinions and my expressed thoughts were devalued. Upon her return, our relationship morphed like a flower taped to the ground. Still trying to grow but never changing form, we were a condensed and hushed train wreck. We still talk, but we don't communicate. It was clear from the first day that she only wanted to be back home. She expressed this to me as our feet were scalded by the burning sand at our subdivision's beach. It was so hard to leave, she mused, her ring from Biella catching the sunlight and blinding me momentarily. It was like leaving home all over again. It wasn't very hard for you to leave here, I laughed, hiding my pained expression with a squint. Well, it's different when you're leaving someplace you actually want to be, she clarified. Later in the year, we met at the bottom of my driveway to make an exchange, a shirt I left at her house for a fresh batch of my mother's banana chocolate chip muffins, a common currency between us. We spent an entire hour sitting on the rough concrete that premature school night, an event reminiscent of our adolescence. The discussion topics, however, reminded us of our mutual maturity. For many glorious minutes, she either lowered herself to my level or I was raised to hers. But either way, in that gratifying hour, we were talking as equals, just like we used to. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Cisneros, and I am reading an excerpt from my portrait essay. He is much more than a football trophy and hockey position. He goes into games with an abounded heart and enduring determination and hope. Because before every game, he kneels down and prays for God's protection and guidance. His stubborn nature has a 2-second rebound until he is saying the next pain-in-the-ass thing. Words slip from his mouth before he even knows what he is regurgitating. Picking fights and making jokes out of them is one of his most common traits. We have a friendship that many people don't understand. We fight and we argue until it drains the life and bones out of both of us. And yet, it's him showing up to my door the next morning with somber laughs and a spontaneous day filled with forgiving jokes and adventures. He has a compassionate heart, brimming with love and faith, and this is what I envy most about him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie Chung, and I'm going to be reading a lyric essay entitled Miranda. The rope has been measured so that it's exactly 5 feet long. One end is tied to the branch of a tree, the other is knotted and ready for use. The worn, calloused hands that tied the knots are now folded in the lap of a man who is ready to say goodbye. The man is sitting peacefully on the branch. In his ears is the sound of rustling leaves and distant cars. His eyes are closed, but his smile is open. He breathes in, out, in until his lungs have dissipated into air and his blood turns to breeze in his veins. If he sliced himself open, his blood would leave him like a sigh in the wind and drift away. But he cannot release the wind. It would betray him. It would herald the upcoming end, reminding others to demand another repeat. He will not let them force another repeat. He will not leave a note. His life was his note. His life was a symphony of notes that have all led to the suspended finale. He has given the world his music, but forgotten to keep a little for himself. As his song ends, he is undone. He slips the Honda over his head. Not Honda like the car, Honda like the loop at the end of a rope. Honda like the most lethal part of a noose. The rope chafes against his skin, rubbing out harmonies of time with his breath. The crescendo that will be his end has begun. It starts slowly, a pianissimo that is barely above a whisper. His worn, calloused hands clench and unclench in his lap. His smile closes as his bright eyes open. The wind is gentle and brushes his cheeks, turns wild and tussles his hair, turns vicious and batters his skin. The world is a sea of red and gold, and he is beautiful like the leaves. He knows that soon the leaves will glide towards the ground, lose their color, die. They will follow his lead. The music builds, screams in his veins. He slips off the branch. The music stops. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole O'Brien. I will be reading a part of my lyric essay called Painting a Broken Picture. Soldier, a person engaged in military service, a person who serves in the army. I wanted to be one since I was 13 years old. At one
Hi, my name is Allison Henschel, and I'll be reading a piece I wrote called The Beacon. The man he had become. Stretching his muscles before a long workout, baby fat completely gone from his body. With a grin, a friend and him would compete while exercising, keeping each other pumped, helping each other forward. He was lean, a lean solidity that defined him on his football team. He was fast, with thin, hard legs, and agile with a skinny waist. This is how I remember seeing him last, tall and lean compared to the pudgy little kid I grew up with, taunting him for his baby fat. Thick black hair now attractively short, no longer awkwardly shoulder length. The first summer his childhood softness had disappeared. I was shocked by his athleticism, but mostly by the cocky, hot guy attitude he had acquired. Yet he had the same crooked smile as the sweet-faced elementary boy I will always remember. Now, my pudgy little friend is absent, and the athletic man who replaced him has gone limp. My mouth gapped at the sight of the man I have known since he was a boy. They wheeled him in. First, I saw an unsteady arm lifting a hand to run through hair that was no longer there. His muscles had melted away, almost as quickly as his baby fat did. I was astounded, shocked, because I always knew him as a symbol, a beacon even, of strength. And now, his head lay crooked, his mouth fell open, and his body, once so trained and perfect, was now a broken reminder of what he once was. But with a crooked smile, I could see him. Deep in his oakwood eyes, he was there, struggling in ways I couldn't see. Weeks passed without seeing him. His name rang through the town. His friends spoke of him fondly, but less and less frequently. The day came, though, when I saw him again. This time they wheeled him in and helped him to stand. With the help of a sturdy wall, he managed to walk. Someone who I thought a semi-truck had broken was walking, and something inside me stirred with hope. Now, more than ever, he is strong. I could push him over with no resistance, yet he would still be so much stronger than I could ever hope to be. He is now, more than ever, a symbol, a beacon even, of strength. Thank you.
Hi, my name is London Rao, and I'm going to read a piece from my nonfiction essay about somebody that I used to know. You found temporary happiness in the form of a burnout dope dealer. You molded yourself to fit in with this new sweetheart of yours, someone entirely different from the person I had first known. This was not who you were, and I think deep down you knew that too. You, the girl who didn't give a damn what anybody thought of you, had your self-reliance sucked away by some guy you hardly knew. For reasons I can't understand, I felt personally responsible for what was happening to you, but I couldn't convince you to cut ties with him. I lost track of the number of nights I drove you to his house, while you lay in the back seat with withdrawal convulsions too violent for you to drive yourself. And like the drugs he medicated you with, he repeatedly left you to crash and burn, left you with yellowing marks and bloodshot eyes that were always glossy and haunted. You didn't care about him, not really, not in the scheme of things. Narcotics were the only thing you truly cared about at that point, and I got to watch as they tore you apart from the inside out. A couple more months and a couple more scars later, you managed to kick him, still unable to kick your malicious habit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ivy Bailey, and I will be reading a poem titled My Brother. It's your last spring. You stand next to the maple and the beach, head tilted. This snake is slick, sharp bones, and your teeth so another line of the garden. Hand of God, you mark the spine of the scaly belly. Icy shins warmed by the funeral below, and the salt of my eyes soil your ground. You track grease and slime behind those cowboy chaps. You push a razor against your cheek, head tilted. The steel is concrete slabs against grinding teeth. You fill your trash with bloody tissue. Upper lip clean and cold, chapped, canine. You're a big boy now, with the red and white pants. You hear my burdened words, head tilted. Don't say nice skirt to a lady, or nice legs, or nice ass, I say. Like those greased rats from the river, slicked with 100 grains of sand on their lashes. Don't sleep on Miller Lite mattresses and rubber. Always the rubber. Don't forget the rubber. Wear a nice jacket and slacks, polished shoes, clean face, brushed teeth. You are going to be safe and warm, my voice rising. It's your first winter, and you walk outside in shorts. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Katie Cooney, and I'm going to be presenting a poem called Wrist. Tension is in the wrist. Look into the eyes, open windows to the soul, and spill haze of clouded allegories to condense on pupils the size of buttons hung by black cords, the ballast of the skull. Place a hand on the chest of a deathbed and feel the numbers slide off the clock to the right, off lists of inventoried mourners to the left. In a wrist, feel all the strength the being holds and choose to revel in its existence. Resist theft in mediums of pace and pressure. Shut windows a moment. Put buttons in a box. Feel every shockwave of energy slam into the corridors, crash through the hallways of a body undone. The fleeting commute between atriums and the ends of earths. Race endorphins, pump, pump, pumping through fingertips strangled in the loose threads of sweaters. Follow the lines of the wrist over the tresses of cliffs, mantles of skin where blood has been siphoning. I can connect the white dots, trace its tapestry in purple ink and deluge it in white wine. Extend the oases, carry them up through the clouds, within deeper depths of constellations whose silver has been tarnishing since long before the alcohol. Write me on the boat sent by wrist I left long ago, sailing on letters addressed to my company, yet never returned for instance of inability. Sterility slaps against the folds of flesh, open cavities corroding since the first breath of oxygen-laced hemlock. Forced ambiguity collides with the ambitious as a second mirrors the first, equal in potential, separated by strength. It's a whisper across my memorials that allows me to slip, a flick of the wrist that allows me to fall. I've been promised catalysts in my attempts, yet your catastrophic has proved phenomenal, broadened my menus to perpetual touch, touching my wrists. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gwen Stricker, and I'm going to be reading my poem called Lucifer Wears a Paisley Tie. Lucifer wears a paisley tie, tightened into a tangle of pain, broken-hearted, shame. Embarrassed and forgotten thoughts, the sky outside connects the dots, blinking on and off in your vision. Seeing something others miss, swinging a hit to try a second time, flying through the air around us like a myth. Sometimes the best things are hidden lies. Lawyers and double-crossers cover their tracks, spiraling down into emotional wrecks, destroying the town and all you hold in your heart, which thumps like the footsteps. Run for your life, you've only got one. So sit up for a struggle, because the worst are the best at what they do. You think you need that power, but it's not true strength. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kylie Beeler, and I'm gonna be reading a poem called A Night of Moonlight. A black sky and candlelit stars, straight tangled hairs swinging in the wind, sticking their feet in the corners of my mouth, stabbing the saliva-covered tongue. Soft fingertips push the swing, pulling the roots from the ground, giving them flight to the sky. Falling back into a familiar spot, they relax and laid one by one in a valley of bones, laced with cotton-covered skin. Fingertips ran across my blushed cheek, sending its mothered palm after them. Comforting and satisfying its want to be held, with closed eyelids it slept under the moon. Trusting its comfort, trusting its nearness, it slept just for a few before it was pulled closer. There sat the window, two different sets, 2 window panes bordered with brown chipped paint, 2 window panes bordered with green moss. We both sat staring through the tinted glass. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luke Kuski, and this is Jehovah's Witness Protection. Home alone, 8 o'clock at night, ring of the bell makes a ring in my ear. I was expecting an axe murderer and got stuck with 2 pale kids riding their bikes. Clad in short-sleeved, white button-down shirts and matching ties, they loomed. It's summer. They must really know how hot hell is. I'm sure they're eager to tell me all about it. The constant pounding on my front door continues. Can't you see I'm trying to watch Cops? You want to talk about Jesus? Christ, the constant smiles make me nervous. I'd like to thank you for yours, but don't expect me at the service. I need Jehovah's Witness protection. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meg Caldwell, and I wrote a poem and it's called Public Poetry. There's a Spanish proverb that says, "An ounce of blood is worth more than a pound of friendship." And I'm not sure how to respond to that phrase or how to feel about it because I think my family would bleed for me. I like to believe, though, that my family would bleed an ounce of blood for me if I was ever in an accident, and soon that pound of friendship becomes an ounce of blood, and what does your proverb mean then? Because I do not have time to explain what family means to me. Mismatched polka dots on a wall mixed with stripes. It's not about blood, but the people around you that look at you and go, "I will love you forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever." Because nothing feels like air behind a boat. Nothing feels like a joke that you are at the center of. And I don't have the time to explain my family to you other than a list. Bison, breezes, boats, beer, belief, and bringing cupcakes to the new year. She always smiles and her eyes light up with fireworks. I would like to explain to you the skin graft that bleeds green from roots, but I cannot explain to you every stitch that made me who I am, who saw me bleed out, and the way the stars make a bull do not make sense to you, but to my sister it does. I can never make you understand Marquette hikes and rainy days, and you will never understand the way it feels Dakota Magnesium behind the RV, running through the reservation, leaving behind bad thoughts and bad lands. I can't tell you what photographs of alligators mean, or the way a house was torn down 5 years ago and I am still sleeping on an air mattress eating breakfast off the floor, because sometimes compromise is hard, but I guess they taught me love is easy. I can't explain to you polar bears and handmade sweaters sitting in the lobby of the Drake Hotel. Family is about sitting in a circle and knowing that you can only be thankful for objects. It means big lakes and small oceans and Tacoma blues. It means Granada nights, Barcelona fights, Madrid soccer fights, and beautiful things. Family means that in the dark, when it puts the lotion on or it gets the hose, is echoing in my head or the tunnels, and I hate admitting this, but I fall in love with everyone I meet. I cannot describe the feeling of nothing makes sense, and family can't die, but family can, and it happens. And even though you don't want grief to see through, it's like a hot pink shawl worn to 3 o'clock mass. Embarrassing. But sometimes, just sometimes, the people who don't bleed the same color as you can dissect the body better when the flesh finally pales out. And sometimes pounds become ounces because the little things matter more than the large. And I would rather have vials of different shades of red than all one color. And I hope I can make the Spanish understand this. I hope I can make you understand that family, it is much more than who has to be around you, but who you love being around. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olivia Fleet, and I'll be reading a poem called Sunshine Furniture 2005. Asleep on Sunshine Furniture 2005, eyes closed. Images ebb and flow, whispering vacant truths in my ear. Here is the living proof of what I bury too deep. These dreams set everything on fire, fire set from the inside out. Fire that follows me, follows you, follows our feet. It tells me where I've been, hints at where I'm going. She's in the mirror sometimes. I carry you with me, transplanting you into all of my worlds. We're water, you and I. You bleed into my dreams like ink, a constant audience. I say goodbyes in my sleep. Suddenly I am back. Sun streams through the windows on our flight. It's 1991, and we're side by side. I die on mountains and cars, on planes, on bridges. Then I find my footing again in memories reconstructed from the hours of waking eyes. I lock them all in a box breathing with a distorted reality. Down I go, levels deep, Sunshine 2005. No kick can jump me out. My pillows remember what I forget. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susie Ness, and I will be reading a poem called Hours. 6 o'clock, and your drunken sobs curse the air around us. The sun has set, and rage slashed a guy's tires and tore that Tiffany necklace out of her wretched palm, leaving nothing but loneliness. 7 o'clock, and I'm trying to coax the vodka out of your empty pores, but it's lodged itself beneath your instincts before settling in your shaking thoughts. 8 o'clock, and you're screaming at demons only seen by your misty forest eyes. 9 o'clock, and you're begging someone, anyone, to relinquish the secret to why she left. 10 o'clock, and you're face down, floating along unconscious, leaving me to watch your bottle emptying down the kitchen sink. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Greenfelder, and I will be reading a poem called Playtime. Toy soldiers lie as cadavers. Decay ravages the innocence of childhood. Young boys run without knowing the truth. Ignorance hides the world from their sight. The scopes of their fake guns are sensors, choosing how they see humanity. People as objects, toys on the floor as casualties.
Hi, my name is Allie Shoemate, and I'm going to be reading a poem called Miracles. Fear strangles, claws, forever clutched in its grasp. Tortured sobs escaping cracked lips. The constant thump-thump, all but stopped forever. Words, thrown around like nothing, their meanings lost. Will not make it, say goodbye. Only miracles can help. Miracles so few, so unseen. Unfocused, confused, failures creep toward daily life. You, so peaceful, yet so painful to all who see. Tear-sparkled eyes glance in what must be the end. Unknown changes made in the dead of night. Prayers answered, miracles performed, the impossible possible, your heartbeat returned, secured by the constant thump-thump speaking again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Austin Harmon. I'll be reading my poem, Metaphors. What if the pot never called the kettle black, but instead they stayed upon their shelf, knowing their shared similarities, but choosing to ignore them? What if the cat never went away, but instead knowing the mouse's plan, hid in wait until it came, relishing as it bit into each head and felt the mice crush under his teeth? What if the glass house was the strongest substance, and nothing, not even an atom bomb, could bring the four walls down to the ground? What if it took no stone to kill the birds, and just merely staring at your feathered friends could cause them to meet their fate? What if two wrongs could make it right? In fact, any number of wrongs, even one, could make it right. What if all the metaphors could be undone? What then would we do?
My name is Brianna Worthington, and I will be reading a poem called Telescope Eyes. Silver-clouded vessels cling like wind chimes, hanging in frosted shards like stitched nails on a playground. Molten veins drip severed gold, pouring stalagmite dust over weak light, mingling ravaged fingerprints with hot sand and rust. Cracked lips release steering keys, while suckled grass stains and sweet rawness remain, a thriving rush of liquid behind glazed windows. Chinks of steel stardust, all but hidden, reflected in telescope eyes. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ella Tutlis, and I'm going to be reading my poem titled Gray Matter. Once I buried my cat, and then my dog, both named from gods back into the earth. They were deposited parallel to trillium roots, oh those musky tendrils. Once I cried for days, but truth, days cried for me. Holding onto fur, grasping at antiseptic in the air. Oh sweet, oh dear, oh breezy soul, do you have to leave? Leave with a switch. On, off, on. Really on and barking at waves. Not at the vet's office next to the road. I pass you every day. I pass your body every day as if you have taken over that whole building. It's funny how dog spirits can come back, bite you. Sometimes it's alive, dead, alive. Is there a difference? It's like the switch and it's easy. I see the claws on the wall, and to me they are real. To others, maybe a whole new world, smudges on beige, perfection slanted. Maybe the floorboards my dog walks on are actually fissures in my amygdala, like orange uni, like veal, soft, with a taste of pudding, syrupy, the kind you get at a Chinese buffet next to brownies and egg rolls. But to you, it could have the consistency of saying cynosure in a low breath with eyes that guard. The deepest emotional crevice in your body can sound or taste or feel like anything you want. Here, try it. Here, I'm giving you this little ounce of pure gray matter, pink flesh, dripping in your own electronegative juices. Will you take this from me? Thank you.
My name is Hannah Gordon, and I will be reading you the poem As Cold as Snow.
Fairy tales don't always have a happy ending. If they did, why am I bleeding? On the floor, knife by my side, waiting to die. Why is my dress in tatters, gold crown rotting on my head? She wished for a daughter, as black as ebony, as white as snow, as red as blood. She got what she wished, at the expense of her life. My father, the king, never got over her, her love and her beauty. I was a stain left behind by her corpse, and so he beat the blood red out of me. My death was ordered, but I disagreed. They tried hard to accomplish, but didn't succeed. So with this tiny knife, I slaughtered them all, put them in glass cases to decorate the walls. But I couldn't end there, too much damage to my thoughts. That night, through black of pitch, of ebony, I slipped into my father's room and took back my pride, my innocence, my childhood, my mind. And so my laughter rang out, echoing through. My life was my own, for the first time. Spinning around, I stop in front of mother's mirror. Reflection glaring back at me, who else in this castle do you see? Falling down, I giggle, all to myself. Only me, 'cause I'm the only one left. And so I strung them up to display through the halls, took the gold crown and sat down on the throne. Then that prince came to ask for my hand, but he took one look at the scene and cowered in fear. What use do I have for a man that can't stand the sight of a little blood? None. None at all. He begged for his life, then tried for my own, scraped my arm with his sword before I took it and severed his head. His body fell forward, drenching my dress, the head on the floor, becoming white as snow. Thank you.
My name is Jackson Douglas. I'm going to be reading a poem called Push. I feel it. Feet pounding on the pavement, and I feel it. I feel the cold bite of the winter air. I feel the warm blood running through me, and it goes faster and faster with each step. My heart is pounding. I put my fingers to my throat, and I can feel that too. I feel it burning in my feet, but I keep going. My skin is numb, but I keep going. Past the point where I should stop, past the point where I feel it. I keep going, and I push past the pain. Thank you.
My name is Meg Riley. I'm reading my poem Cardiophobia. I walked around with confidence, a secret tucked away in my ventricles and atriums. My heart oil leaked and dripped. I know that you saw it. We slipped in it. We've been slipping in it. I thought we were rhythmic. I guess we still are. You are just one beat ahead. My pericardium has failed me. You punched right through. You squeezed. I drained. You weren't even looking. My valves are hollow. Blood pools in my veins like a corpse. Empty and floating. Heavy and sinking. This isn't a heart attack.
Hi, my name is Danielle Landowski, and I'm going to be reading my poem called Cardiac Strings. Body stained like wine in the dirt. Beneath the moonlight, the blood thuds between old ribs that lit like matches. Some skipping beats, beat bruises against bone marrow because some nights there's a mind in my throat. Some foreign territory that makes it swell on breath. I didn't mean that thing I said. But I still recognized your hair from street corner, from bruises beating in blue, speaking in a lost tongue. Holding paper dolls that are burning in my left hand, tracing vowels in the corner, in the air, in billowed blood, some billowing sky between skin, beneath moonlight on a different side of town. Thank you.
My name's Rand Michaels, and I will be reading my poem, The Tale of the Carrot and the Gold. Its existence as a carrot on a stick, urging me forward. I constantly think I'm clever enough. The stick can't be outsmarting me. But maybe it would be better to be content, to stick with the feed bag already strapped to my face. But the carrot looks so sweet and crunchy. Maybe if I go a little faster, just maybe. It beckons me by means of proximity. As I charge on, reckless and insensitive, leaving a path, eclectic and unfinished. Behind me, things I've tossed aside on the way, dependencies and addictions, painfully forgotten, but that's the goal. Of what you can be rid is the tale that will be told. That fool did it. the crazy one, the naked, lonely, lost one, who has forsaken us much and been forsaken, whose gods have left him years ago, he did not need them. His life was reduced to the core, where it was bitter, harsh. It left a bad taste in your mouth, with nothing left to wash it out. Nothing to cleanse your palate as your hues began to mix into a ruddy brown that colored all I touched. And they will tell the tale again, 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 until sleep replaces its images with the sordid, checkered lives of dreams. And as such, I will be remembered.
Hi, I'm Clara Tripp, and I will be reading an excerpt from my short story called Changing Seasons about two girls, Danielle Rose, called Danny, and Jane, the narrator, about kind of dealing with their own personal problems. I could tell she wasn't eating again. In her eyes, I could see Danny loved the boy, refusing food to scoop out her insides, trying desperately to make room for him inside her. He had no idea, but every time he looked at her, she wished there was less to see. He touched the bones that stuck out on her collarbone, let his fingers dip into the spaces her skin used to fill, and told her it was the most beautiful thing. As she kept her mouth closed to everything, even her words, her lovely crazy starved away, she was soon just space. I could have killed him, bleed him dry, and watch his love for her soak into the ground, his love for the spaces where her skin should be, his love for the sacrifice of her substance. I watched him put his arms around her, trying to warm her up when her body didn't have enough calories to do it itself. She had to go away again, and when she came home, I reminded her that all the self-help books said to avoid triggers. I love him, though, she told me, looking at his house. That love isn't good for you, Danny. It'll kill you. Our walks were silent. Danny had retreated in herself, and I had taken to wandering at night again, feeling walls, touching cold glass panes, fingers searching for something. I never knew what that something was, but what I did know were the holes inside of me. Where Danny had tried to empty herself out, I was trying to fill myself up. Spring came, and Danny's voice had started to come back. Sounds change in spring, Danny told me as drops of water fell from the branches and onto our heads. What are you talking about? I said. The sounds change. Winter is filled with silence, snowfall. She smiled. So what do you hear now? I asked. Distant birds, squirrels on snow, drops of water. It's like the world is waking back up. I stopped. Danny's hair swished along her collar. It had gotten long in the winter. She turned her head to look back at me, and it snapped around her head like the tail of a startled fish. Neither of us moved, neither of us talked. We looked at each other, trying to find the familiarity in some characteristic. The bridge of a nose, the bow of lips, the veins along one another's forehead. Read a face like a palm. This line on Danny says she will starve herself, and this line here on mine says I will be filled with a loneliness that I cannot cure. Maybe if I figured out what it is that marked her as lovable, then I could find all the people I was meant to love. There would be no heartbreak, just a quick search of the face. Do you hear it? Danny broke the silence. I nodded. There was so much, filling up every space in the whole woods, surrounding me and hugging me close with its gigantic bareness. For once, I didn't want to move a step. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard, I told her. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Ewing, and I am reading an excerpt from my short story about a slave in the 18th century, and I played with my narrator for a little bit. The first time I met Fisher, the moon was low and the sky was dark. The warm breeze hinted at the onset of summer, as it must have been late June. His figure emerged from the top of the hill. He snuck through the plantation and came to rest on his knees beneath my branches. As he gazed past me, he seemed to search the aphotic river for an answer of some kind. I wondered what he had hoped to find. I had seen him many times before, as I would watch the river alongside me and the field beyond me come to life every morning. The boats would slowly chug down the murky lane, and the breeze would pick up the wispy cotton from their stems and the men's hands, and carry it softly until it clung to my leaves or drifted away with the boats. He had always been quiet. Each day, he seemed to envy the men on the water from afar, searching for answers to the same questions he had that night. His dull eyes reflected the river, and suddenly tears silently made ravines down his cheeks and landed in his palms. I found myself weeping with him, my branches sagging in the heat, my leaves crisping slowly, I couldn't help but feel his pain. He was a lost soul, and I couldn't protect him. I never could protect him. After that evening, I paid special attention to Fisher. I called him Fisher because he watched the men on the water yearningly. He began to visit me sporadically, always at night and always in sadness. He learned to climb my trunk and sleep beneath the shade of my leaves. Just before sunrise, he would jump down on the mossy ground and swoop his hands in the river, splashing the refreshing water over his face to wake him. Then he would return to his knees as he did the first night he sat beneath me, bracing his palms together. He would bow his head in a strange position that reminded me of the birds that would nestle into the feathers as they perched on my branches. The girl worked inside the house. Some days I found her outside hanging clothes on the line or through the window of the master's home atop the hill as she served the family dinner. She always looked so lonely as she worked. I can remember the first time I saw her small figure emerge next to Fisher's in the dark, with the moon lighting their path through the cotton down to the river. One night, they waded slowly into the river together. Their voices were hushed, but their smiles were gleaming through the darkness. Fisher floated on his back, with his hands holding the back of his neck. I watched her watch him patiently, carefully. I think she loved him. Afterwards, they climbed back on shore, and both of them tucked themselves safely under my long branches, seeking refuge in the night. Suddenly, a light from the house illuminated the valley where I stood. The two quickly fumbled together at my trunk, silently shaking as I held them. Eugene's body appeared in the window, casting a tall shadow down the hill. Fisher wrapped his arms tightly around her small frame, and she tucked her face down quietly in a bird-like posture. Soon, the light disappeared, leaving an eerie silence broken by the small voice of the girl. I called her Birdie from then on. Thank you.
Hi, again, my name is Allison, and I'll be reading just a little piece of my short fiction called Iranian. The only thing you really need to know is the person telling the story is not human. She is from a different world called Iranian. Itty bitty bubbles fizzled around me in the bathtub, blue ones. My memory pulls me back to my first bitey blue bubble bath every time I decide to soak. Mom, why are the bubbles blue? She picked me up off the ground and eased little 5-year-old me into the frigid blue water. I already told you, warm bubble baths don't like my mixture, and without my mixture, they will find you. Who is they? I asked. Hopefully, you will never have to know. Now shush. As my mother commanded, I shut my eyes and let visions grab at me. Muttering them to my mother, she sketched them so fast it was as if she could grab the words from thin air and press them with graphite onto her sketchpad, which was already so filled with unchoreographed words. No lines meant the words had no structure. They were free, like me. In this vision, I watched as flowers split the ground open, birthing lily kids, bright petals waving like hair on their heads, viney green skin, black buggy eyes. They run and fumble together, laughing, a sound resembling that of dripping water. Then my mumbles turned into chants. The lily kids turn, and they seem to be looking in my direction. Then they would cower or flee. Mother rips me from the bathtub. All squeaky clean, go get dressed. Maybe I'll let you have some ice cream. Being a child, I didn't dare question anything my mother said when ice cream was on the line. I probably should have. Scooping out big hunks of frozen cream, my mother simply grinned at me as I bounced up and down. I ate my ice cream and listened to her tall tales of faraway lands, bubbly skies, vast orange oceans, even thick purple trees. She gazed past me, describing the fluffy silk bark. Beautiful, she had said, simply beautiful. Thank you.
My name is Hannah, and I will be reading a short excerpt from my flash fiction, Thawing. What you need to know about this piece is it's about a young man who almost drowns in a river, and the other young man that saves him. What I'll be reading is about the events directly after the saving and what hinders the two from reaching immediate safety. Oh, good, you found him. An eerily high-pitched voice came from the figure. I've been looking everywhere for him. Who the hell are you? You asked her, standing your ground, holding my wrist tighter. I'm his mother, and I've been looking for him for such a long time, she replied, and then looked at me. Come here, dear. We'll have a tea party with your siblings when we get home. No. My voice shook, and I tried to take a step back. I'm not going back to a house full of dolls. Thank you.
I'm Luke, and this is from an excerpt from the beginning of my short fiction. It's called The Matchbox. It was the only thing that he always carried with him, the only object that he could always find by reaching into his pocket. He loved everything about the small rectangular box that he carried, the white glossy cover that he would sometimes run his fingers over when he felt nervous. The matches were long and made from white pine. The phosphorus head was clad in a very superfluous gold, but he didn't mind. He even loved the sound of the word matchbox. On long subway rides back to his apartment at night, sometimes he would whisper it aloud to himself. Matchbox. Matchbox. This matchbox, although small in size, was the only constant in his life. He was a middle-aged man with bright white hair that made him look 20 years older than he is. He lived in a small apartment in New York, the city that he wished would take a nap once in a while. He acquired the matchbox in his formative years, a gift from his father. The apartment was gray and dull, and had been meticulously cleaned every week. He sat down in a chair next to a window in the corner of his apartment, a space no one other than he had been in 10 years. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brianna, and I will be reading an excerpt from my short fiction piece called How Old Are You When You Close Your Eyes? It's about a girl who's recovering from abuse. Warm, brick-colored liquid pours down my arm and mixes with the steaming water pelting from the shower head. Red spider webs curl from the inside of my wrists, down my elbow, where it drips onto the slippery tiles, coloring the swirling water crimson before it vanishes down the drain. The razor in my other hand bears the same dripping red before I hastily shove it under the stream of water, returning it to its innocent, shiny silver. I suddenly feel warmth emanating from the humid air that is trapped in the shower with me. A steady bead of water rushes down my face, curling into vines that roll down my breasts and eventually into the turmoil below. The tightly coiled muscles in my shoulders begin to relax as I take deep breaths, enjoying the sensation of satisfaction throughout my body. I feel the same intoxicating rush of power, just like the first time I had purposely cut myself with my bedroom mirror 5 years ago. I know I have to stop, but I need this, especially today. Here I can let go of the memories. Here I am in control. Thank you.
Hi again. I'm Rand, and I will be reading the beginning of my flash fiction called Pied Pipers. The sounds of the psaltery floated through the inn, with highs and lows accompanied by the baritone of Nils' voice. The crowd waved in unison, with ales held up in the air, spilling on neighbors who were too enthralled to notice. They were caught up, entirely and utterly, in the music woven by the two young performers. Nils and Ninian were traveling minstrels, bards and vagabonds making whatever money they could by playing and singing at the hostels where they would spend the night. The crowds were always infatuated and entranced by the tunes they played. Twin brother and sister, they had pale skin and blonde hair, carrying little but their instruments in their travels. When their music sped up, the listeners got rowdy. They danced and sang and drank. But when the music slowed down, couples were made in an instant, old love rekindled, and no one was left without a dancing partner. All quarrels were forgotten and debts held paid in the magic of their music. But ill tales were soon heard of a war brewing in the west, and Nils and Ninian began to travel that way. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Allie, and I'll be reading my flash fiction called Letters. I hear the constant pitter-patter of the rain as I open the sealed envelope addressed to me. It arrived only recently, with a few drops soaking through, making the fancy writing smear. I know who it is from, but I can't help but notice the differences. I received these letters in my mailbox, stamped with dozens of postmarks, smudged with dirt, crinkled by all the hands it has been through to get here. Usually, these letters are shipped from overseas, from the war. This time, however, is different. This letter was hand-delivered by a stranger. I open the carefully sealed envelope and pull out the letter to read the delicately written words. I would be honored if you would do me the favor of meeting me in our spot, 6 tonight. No name is needed for it. I know exactly who sent it and where to be. The rain is still a light drizzle as I make my way to the small park, not far from my house. I left earlier than needed, choosing to walk instead of drive. My mind begins to wander as all of the memories that come flooding back. Memories of mixed emotions, both good and bad. I smile at the memories as I see a figure before me, unmistakably male, sitting by himself, without so much as a jacket to shield him from the rain. My smile disappears, turning to a sudden look of puzzlement. How is this possible? You're early, he calls out, turning around with a smirk of a smile on his face. My heart begins to pound 1,000,000 miles per minute, while my emotions begin to take over. Tears begin to slip down my face, blurring my vision. His smile fades away, and he reaches toward me to comfort me. I reach towards him, my arm pausing where I should have met his warm grasp. There is nothing but the cool fall breeze. My tears stop as a sob chokes out from between my lips. I turn, shaking my head, a quiet sorry escaping from my lips. My umbrella falls, spinning as it touches the ground. I run from the man I love without a single glance back. My hand reaches down to a different letter in my pocket, a formal letter. I ache at the thought. As I run, I pull it out to be sure. We regret to inform you, missing in action, presumed dead. My eyes skim over the letter, tears dotting down the page. I glance back, hoping to see him still standing in the same spot. Thank you.
Hi, I'm back. I'm Clara again. I really like fiction. So. This is a story about a jazz singer, and it's called Caged Bird Singing. Dorothy used to believe that her voice could chase away all the shadows. At school, she'd stand up to sing and everyone would go silent, looking at the little girl that opened her mouth and grew 10 inches right in front of them. Teachers stopped to listen in doorways, and at home her neighbors put their ears to the wall to hear. They protected that voice, so she was protected too. The older boys would walk her home, their mamas would watch her when her daddy was out late. She floated around, no one touching her for fear her hollow bones might break. Her daddy had some siren song in him too. The neighbors called him Birdie, and when his old bandmates visited with their shiny brass and heavy cases, they called him Birdie and their smoky jazz singer grumbles. It's short for songbird, he told her one night. We are just a nest of songbirds. He was filled to the brim with music, and it poured out onto her as well. He taught her the Charleston as soon as she could walk, and every night they wore the floor thin, dancing to their own tunes. They didn't have much, but Dorothy was still the happiest little girl. She never guessed what life had thrown him, how his voice had been such a curse. Maybe if Dorothy had, she would have never opened her mouth. Little girls like her didn't know how the mob bosses loved their rhythm and blues, and how the mob bosses loved to own what they loved. Her daddy had sung at one of the mob's clubs before she was born, and when she came along, he had tried to leave. That's when he learned they had put a cage around him and his voice. They ran away before she could even walk, and found her a home hidden from the mob. When she had just turned 16, she came home to shots on the street and her smiling daddy dead on the ground. Dorothy wanted to stay silent the rest of her life. The people lay claim to the beautiful and the blessed. And they fight to keep them. And Dorothy was starting to see that she didn't have a chance in stopping her own voice. She could see the desperation in her neighbor's eyes, afraid that she would leave them too. Dorothy made sure she was gone the next morning, went to audition at a club. The owner, a mob boss with slicked hair, asked her name. Birdie, she said. I go by Birdie. She got the job and pretended she didn't see the cage closing in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ivy, and I will be reading the first part of my short fiction piece called Hedges. The day her son died in that stale tomb of starched covers, where the slowing beat of the monitor soothed him to sleep, I sat on the porch across the street from Eliza's. It was the summer of '92 and so humid that the sadness didn't seem to move outside of our trailer park. Everyone could see it too and feel it in the sweaty necks and sticky limbs and damp shirts. Every chirp of a bug and roar of an engine caused a tidal of disturbance, a rift in the morning. That summer, I locked out my big truck and muted my TV. I was 55 with nowhere to be, nursing a bad knee, so I resigned myself to sitting on 2 plastic crates stacked on the trailer porch. My hurt leg stuck out with the dead weight of a herd of elephants, my gums gnawing on the chew that sat there in my lip. I watched Eliza's home every day in the heat. It had been years since we had been together. She was one of the last to move into the trailer park, and the day she drove up, her hair was nested around her head like a million gold threads. As my swollen, pregnant wife and I went to meet her, a stream of hot smoke shot from her lips as she reached her hand towards mine. Name's Liza. I salivated. Eliza, Eliza. God, it caressed my tongue. She was a small thing with a drawling voice an octave higher and a world sweeter than any I had ever heard. She wasn't a flirt either, and she carried herself as confident and as tall as any man, and her lips were kissable, and I wanted to sit next to her and have her complain about her date to me just so that I could hear Eliza. Her pink nails pointed at my wife's stomach. Congrats, when is he due? God, you just must be as swollen as a melon under the beating sun. You know, my ma used to grow lemons. Tasted like candy, I swear to God. She miscarried, and it was the 4th time. I'm done, she said to me. And for 2 weeks, I made my wife runny eggs with white toast before the sun came up. Thank you.
My name is Danielle, and this is an excerpt from a dystopian-esque short fiction piece that takes place beneath the city of Brooklyn in a society where human emotions can be taken via injections. In her apartment, Anya walked to her bedroom and opened the cabinet that kept her stock of emotions. She pulled hope from the shelf and thought of the endless strings of concern her mother left on ignored voicemails. I wish you'd answer my calls. I wish you'd speak to your sisters. I wish you'd come home. As she poured hope into the small barrel, Anya wished it hadn't always been like this. She wanted to rip apart her insides to find She wanted to rip apart her lungs to find the airs in her insides, as if somewhere along the way her veins started overlapping in the wrong spots, coiled too messily to circulate blood. She thought that maybe if she could rearrange them, she would stop seeing the same silhouettes behind her eyelids. The reoccurring nightmares composed within the confines of her apartment yearned for some remedy, for some hope injections. The needle pricked her skin and reminded her of all the ways she fell in love with the wrong things. It reminded her how hope was her favorite. Anya could feel the chemicals blend, could feel this disposition being polarized. She walked back to her living room and turned on the television set. The city stopped broadcasting news beats and airing current shows a while ago, but It's a Wonderful Life was on. The months ran together when the sun became a foreign concept, so maybe the almanac was right this time. Maybe winter came early. And hope was settling in her veins. Anya felt like calling her mother and telling her how sometimes gingerbread tastes better without the ginger, or Christmas trees would say if they could talk. She wanted to tell her mother how she stopped thinking in terms of the seasons because she hadn't seen a Brooklyn winter in over 2 years. She felt like telling her how December was always hard in the underground, alone, but she could keep occupied with joy and with warmth. Somewhere in the midst of theorizing, Anya's telephone rang, and no one called her anymore except her mother. Somewhere in Anya was the fact that she knew this drug like the spelling of her own last name. She knew hope would not create the things she wanted to say, the words she could recite in iambic pentameter that would lay easy on her mother's ears. She would still be that damaged good on the other line, the vocalized proof that her clear bottle liquids were futile, that this cartography wasn't real. Thank you.
I will be reading a poem called Oh Dear Serenity. Iceberg. I feel on this deserted iceberg. The only thing I have. Abandoned. Lonely. I feel on this deserted iceberg. Attempting to maintain my balance in spite of the ferocious cold and whistling wind drowning my body.
noose. An off mindset led this man to his noose, dangling there, awaiting the company of someone, something, rope. A nasty feel it has. Rope burn is the worst. Rug. So soft and welcoming, just like that mat. Laying outside the door. Close it tightly. We don't need a breeze. Cold air, cold room, cold company, cold heart. Shaped however you want, like clay, forming to your hands. Feeling what's next, grasping for more, so close to the end. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Erica Greenfelder, and I will be reading Funeral in Saginaw. Through the concrete wall, my heart convulsed with the pulsing chorus of praises of a man preserved in a formaldehyde-stained coffin. I had no tears for the stranger. The three women in the front row had no tears, just a look of pain as they kept their face from revealing their bitterness towards a father absent for 14 Father's Days and all the days in between. They were oiled to the tears, separated from the congregation by their failure to contort their disappointment into a facade of love. We didn't belong. We came here for the wrong reasons. I came because of my mother. They came to see him held accountable by the stiffness binding him to his own funeral.
I'm Tasha, and I'm going to be reading a poem that I wrote called Seasons. Autumn. Grass covered in brown, yellow, orange, red. Red passion. We met in autumn. Red leaves. He leaves me on a cold night, alone, without warmth. Without warmth, I huddle next to a lone space heater. It glows orange like the fire he kissed me by. I'm cold, too cold to breathe. To breathe his breath again, to feel him. But I don't feel him. Cold, alone, I'm afraid. Afraid of myself, what he saw me as, how he sees me now. Or maybe he doesn't see me. See me. Do you actually see me? Me, with my lime eyes, dirt blonde hair, bubblegum lips, light skin, pale with uncertainty, contrasting my black heart that eats light and never emits. I need light to see his face. Flushed cheeks from feeling, blush red like a rose as it dies in a white porcelain vase. So does his want for me. Deep blood red petals, not death black, but close. Close to leaving, he always was. Never attached, never invested, just there. Just there in the car rides, an hour long. Just there at the movies, the closeness. His leather couch was red. I admired him. His talent, his beauty, his mind. His mind is colorful, not like a rainbow, a quilt. Different patches stitched together to make something more. Warmth. He was once warm. His warmth once held me like a quilt. And now he's just a cold memory. Cold memory, eyes are blue like ice, like his heart, withdrawn from the world. He's cold. Winter's white snow blank and barren, but still beautiful. I love him like the summer we spent together, but nature has a way of changing things. Now it's winter, and I'm cold and alone. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kylie. I'm going to read a poem called Lies, and it's about the time I told my little brother that if he didn't brush his teeth, termites would eat his teeth. Too young to understand, old enough to learn, she whispered in his ears the lies of fear. He laced the small hairs with mint paste, scrubbing every inch of enamel, searching in the shadows for a hidden bug that would devour his mouth and teeth. He scrubbed and scrubbed till there was no more paste. His mouth bubbled in blood, leaving a red-stained brush. Alligator tears fell from his face as paranoia struck his mind. The fear was inside him, clawing its way into his thoughts. Imagination ran wild, placing illusions in his eyes. He saw one run across his lip, jumping back into his mouth, another hiding under a piece of gum above a tooth. He had termites. He knew he did. Thank you.
Hello again, I'm Katie Cooney, and I'm going to present a poem called Something Like Kansas. There's something strangely romantic in meeting someone for the first time in a long time under a mulberry tree. Something in it sounds like Kansas, like the sun on a white cotton dress its rays kissing her shoulders and the tops of his freckled cheeks, like warm air suspended thickly between blades of grass and the leaves of peach trees and the gaps in their fingers as they lock hands and help each other over the creek. Something in it sounds like a girl and a boy, like Children, merely babies, enjoying the taste of their innocence together as they lick grape popsicles in the garage. It's not until they stand up that anyone can see that this is a different boy, one with heavy dark hair and big soft hands and a near lack of freckles. It's a different girl, too, one with brown waves on her head that laughs and bubbles and is clothed in a near lack of white cotton. Whoever they've each decided to be, if only for the day, seem to be content with each other. She lies back on the bright red blanket, drilling him about the do's and the don'ts of picnic taking, his head on her stomach, feeling the bubbles float up through her voice. And as the day rolls on, they lay motionless together under equal parts sunshine and silence, taking in the grandeur of a nothing day. There's a hop in her step as she runs down to the creek, followed by that freckleless boy and a picked-over loaf of Aunt Millie's wheat bread. And they take turns dropping the crumbs on the tops of the mallards and tossing the leftovers into the ripples of green water and sprint back to their blanket under the oak, laughing as they outrun the waterfowl. She wonders if his heart skipped the same beat hers did when his hand went over hers at the top of the monkey cages at the carnival. She wonders if he was just as confused about why she hadn't wanted to come down in the first place. The trees in the back of the woods are tall and feathered out like peacocks at the top, a canopy that barely traps the light enough to make out his face as she turns back to see him running behind her, trying to match her footprints in the mud as she twists through pine trails and over stumps and in and out of trails that once were, or never were. She makes those trails with a paintbrush bathed in red, thick bands that overlap the knots in the wood, and they switch. He paints in brilliant yellows and vibrant blues, blending them in slips of his fingertips and trusting them to a world of promised insecurities. When they will return to that tree, they will find themselves in the very toppiest of the branches, close enough to touch without ever brushing. She's imagining him leaning closer to her and imagining her head finding his shoulder, but neither of them acknowledge anything, so she must be pretending, and they settle for a centimeter between pinky fingers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm still Gwen, and I'm going to be reading my other poem titled Skin Deep. That is to say, it's worse underneath. Physical is shallow, but it's the only thing that matters. Dressing up for yourself makes it your fault, like the crack in the reflection. Your reflection when you swore not to cut, but you failed. Attention whore. Be true to yourself and be true to you, but blend in so they pick someone else. Orange isn't your color anyways, because it could have been worse. So be thankful. Be flattered they were interested. Don't cry, because it's only skin deep, like your natural beauty. Or is it concealer, pushing forward insecurities? It doesn't matter, you're not worth it anyways. You say we can't win, but that's why we try. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susie, and I will be reading Cure. I turn to the doctor and ask, when will we have a cure for this? When will we have a cure for society's nostalgic ideas on why, what, where, when, who we should be? The cure is hidden in all things broken, their mangled souls leaking the truth of how we were taught to believe one thing, but asked to think another. When will we find a cure? The monotonous voices of a nation echo. When will the suffering reach an end? But their parents didn't tell them that they are the cause of the pain they so desperately avoided. When will we find a cure? I asked him in one last desperate attempt. The doctor looked at me, eyes hinting sadness, and sighed. I don't know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'll be reading a poem called Plastic, It Looks Like Me. Falling from grace is a private thing, something that you don't share, because if you've been on top, you don't want to be on the bottom. If it stays private between your school books and you, then you can still mingle at the top, but you have to cry alone. If words stop being linear, numbers move on the page, then you read as best you can and pretend you don't care. If you forget how perfect works, but you know how it looks, then you wear it, even if it looks just a little bit off. If it's too late, then you stick your head in the sand and you pretend that nothing has changed since the day before you knew. If you take the hard classes and you get a C, pretend it was an A. It'll be good enough. If your essay was shit and the teacher wants to see you after class, pretend to be sorry. But don't look at that paper again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Austin. I'll be reading my poem, The Snake Inside My Head. There is a snake inside my head, and with all of its devious talons, the snake has no rival for evil deeds. With one stroke of its tail against my brain, my world turns murky and my thoughts change. I can feel the depression rise up from inside of me. With one stroke of its tail against my brain, the snake controls my feelings. It makes me mad. It makes me sad. There is a snake in my brain. It wants me to long for death every second of every day. It wants me to push everyone away and regret when they are all gone. It wants me to weep at night. There is a snake inside my head that won't let me smile, for if I might try, it will bite into my brain, releasing its wicked venom, rotting me away. There is a snake in my brain that is trying to destroy me.
Hi, I'm London, and I will be reading a poem about Columbine. At 11:19, sirens wail through deserted streets, in sync with the cries around crowded television sets. News spreading like wildfire, faster than bullets can spray from a gun held by no strangers, a gun held by no honorable young men. At 11:19, sirens wail through deserted streets, in sync with the screams in a high school cafeteria. Do you believe in God? Not a question, an accusation, not a declaration, a death sentence. But where is the God in open fire? Where was God at 11:19? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sabrina, and this poem is called Beauty. We are all radiant things, on a journey to find ourselves, lost and dangerous to the world around us, because we know it will swallow us whole. We search between pages of magazines and aisles of makeup, or at the bottom of whiskey bottles and rows of white powder. Some days we never know who we are, and we swear we won't ever find out. We are told to be someone, and so we do anything and everything to please everyone around us, depressing ourselves at the expense of acceptance. When all you really need is that contagious smile and graceful soul, because we are all lovely things, despite our guiltiest pleasures and most desperate desires.
Hi, my name is Carson Bowen, and I'm going to be reading a poem for you labeled Attacked. You were attacked, not only with sticks and stones that bruised your bones, but with words no one ever knew could hurt you, all because they know what you really are. Attacked by uneasy eyes and mouths that hissed, "No, don't sit next to me." By mother's tone as she whispered, "No one will ever love you." By too many hands that forced you to go numb to any touch. Attacked to the point that you started playing games by yourself, games that made everyone pretend that they were too busy, as you picked up your knife and whispered into your palm, "To my neck, to my breast." You were at war, one versus them all, as you debated which cut would bring the most pain and the most regret. Like them, you know what you really are, a freak. A freak because you were told your body was a temple, but you can't help but feel that your temple was attacked by its God. Where land should be nothing but streams and countryside, God put mountains so tall they weighed on your fragile mentality. God, he never knew what was good for you. All he ever did was leave you naked on the floor with your throat sore from screaming. Your purity bled out in a bastard's hands. Cold, dead stars to wish on, wishes to wake up the next day healed. To wake up with a smooth chest and a bump in your pants to hide where they would sew you up so everyone could see what you really are. A man who was attacked by the bluest eyes with stars to paint, with freckles like galaxies to match. A woman you would have fallen for instantly had you known that she had hidden within her a heart of diamond, stronger than gold, sharp enough to dull the knife you had pressed against her flesh. Attacked by the touch that let you know that she has the power to look past the curve of your waist and the hole between your legs, the power to call you a man even through your curses. Curses laid upon you since the day you were born, the day you were attacked. But she knows what you really are. She knows that you were attacked with sticks and stones that left scars in your bones, with words that made you whisper, "Kill me." Attacked by a God that didn't care how loud you screamed, "Why?" Damn straight you demanded an answer to why. Now you have the power given to you by her to push your bones back into place, to shut up the words that hurt you. Now you could attack those kids that gave you dirty looks just for coming to school that day. Attack the mother that never loved you because you never acted the right way. Attack the hands that made you numb. Attack the God that built you with the wrong chromosomes and everyone that called you by the wrong name. Let them know that you were a rose that you're comparing to a chrysanthemum as if the two were ever the same. They were never the same. Let them know what you really are. Attack the woman with the dreams in her eyes. Let her fall in love with you. attack the hand and let you play the games with the knife, swallow your fear and put it to your chest. Because you know, although it may bring the most pain as you carve away those mountains from your being and staple the bumps to your pants, you know that your blood won't dry and that you will lift that weight from your soul, live with no regrets, know who you truly are. You were attacked, fight back. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ella Tutlis. Wow, can I just say wow? I'm a little emotionally stressed right at the moment, but I'm going to read my poem, so life goes on. This poem is called Crushed. 505 gleaming capillaries were lit by you, yet my teeth can barely swing open. My tongue has a millimeter of room to meet yours. My fingers just miss your hand. Maybe my body is crushed by you. Grease isn't a key and lock. I soak in grease in a claw-footed bathtub. No, grease can't open my locks, and you are still growing sweet in my mind, like rock candy that is dripping and syrupy in my neurons, but hard as stone when you press pink fish bones on my windpipe, little lines, grated breathing, crushed. Crushed like candy, cherry flavored, crushed like peppermints in their wrappers, swirls of dye, bright, and I am wrapped up like they are, carried in a coffin by a preacher. You, the pallbearer, try to touch my blouse, yet I am cold as a kitchen knife, dead meat. Under your fingers, the flies buzz over my frozen irises. My thoughts are crushed by you, stifled by the flavors you produce. Lime, pine needles, butter, fake maple tarnish. I enter your house and we are soon naked, watching Family Feud on the couch. You say Mexico in sync with Richard Dawson, bored like him, lost like him, yet he can make use of plaster, carve that happiness into his face. You feel what you feel. You say, there is someone dying this very second as I speak, and I can't stop it. Maybe that's why I need the pills. Scattered on your counter, they are crushed like candy. You eat them every day because they tell you to. Sand in your mouth. I want to say that this very second a baby is being born. I want to force you to look at my face, feel my torso, kiss me, because this is real and controllable. But I am crushed by the sadness of it all. I watch confetti pour over the happy family on the television and wish you could see me. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Jackson. I was up here earlier. I don't know if you remember. Okay, this poem is called Stuck. I'm stuck. A boat run adrift on land. Tires spinning in the slush. A boot suctioned beneath the mud. If I try to move forward, I'm blinded by a red sunset. Forward is despair. Forward is to be stuck in the rain without an umbrella, to throw the ball and break a window, or telling the truth and getting kicked in the teeth. If I try to move backward, I cannot. Backwards is only an edge, a cliff we run from when we're afraid. Backward is to lose your keys, or to forget your wallet, needing a hand, and instead of reaching for the one you see, you decide to fall. Thank you.
I'm Meg. I'm reading Extremities. The slope, the gentle curve of fingernail, the chipping paint, expression on an unchanging canvas, clipped and filed, raw and monumental, shown simply in a frayed cuticle. Years of gripping a pencil too tightly, years of trying too hard. They're there, right there on the middle finger, an indent against the top knuckle, calloused and shiny, the wrinkles of the bend, the thin skin over the tiny joint, holding things together. She holds things together. Each hair has its own pore, and it's beautiful. It's all beautiful. Wiggle the fingers and you see the veins, underneath and well protected. 4 freckles and 2 shadows of what could be. A crease in the wrist, bent for too long. The hint of bone beneath the surface. This is her hand. Thank you.
Hello, I'm also a Meg, and I'm reading a poem that actually came from a catalog of a lyrical essay. So it was just a bunch of poems that didn't make sense cohesively, but do when they're apart. And it's called Letters. Please stop dripping circles into the coffee table. They stain the wood and remind me that some scars never stop hurting. Please stop dripping from the faucet. Don't you know that dripping was considered torture, and so quickly you've forgotten the way you tortured me? Please stop. Jesus whispered your baptism, but all you remind me of is the way everything circles down the drain, and there's no such thing as new water.
Hi, I'm Jill, and I have a poem inside me I'd like to share. It's entitled, What We Might Find in the Basement. Artifacts. The fake anchor, that is, was a lot more impressive before we dislodged it from our garage wall. Carved binders and missing cats lost roaming our cul-de-sac, sprinkled around the house during his time of instability. Depictions. His single-tracked insistence, the voices from the television reminding us that this nightmarish reality is not scripted. This quiet deviation from sanity is calculated improvisation. Property damage, his and ours, movies flung around like frisbees, used tissues scattered like December snowflakes, and I see him, I see them, my brothers. Hieroglyphics, encrypted notes. Can we ever elude this rocking boat that teeters and tips and doesn't warn you before it overturns completely? What we can do is plod along the concrete whose coldness we can feel through our thinning socks, our shortened fuses, our balding perseverances. Our rat, Stella, had a tumor that drained her life like an ill viscous solution through a funnel. Our protective and scatterbrained dogs, respectively, developed terminal illnesses that called for euthanasia and fatigue. We scoured the neighborhood for our snake that slithered away, much to my neighbor's chagrin, and protected the plywood finish underneath the desolate rabbit cage, but she will always be frozen in rigor mortis, much like every other cardboard Fido holding open the doors of elementary students, behind which his deviation is integrated, replayed on the blank screen as the snow falls outside, as the snow falls.